You may have been told to toughen up. You may have been told to brush it off and to man up and to let it go. And you were told that your feelings were too loud, too messy, too inconvenient. And eventually you listened and you adapted and you learned how to hold it in. The tears, the worry, the depth. Not because you wanted to be fake, and it wasn't because you also lacked any feelings, but more so because the world had made it very clear that your feelings made other people feel uncomfortable. And so you quieted them down and you became a master at swallowing the pain, swallowing it with a smile. And you laughed when you just really wanted to cry, and you numbed out when you wanted to scream. And you learned to disappear into your own mind because being in your body just hurt too much. But the thing is, it never really worked, did it? See, you were praised for your composure, but on the inside you felt like you were rotting, right? You were admired for your logic, but it really just left you disconnected. And you were called strong, but you didn't feel strong. You just felt more alone. Because every time you denied your sensitivity, you didn't just hide a feeling, you're actually hiding a part of who you were. And here's the quiet tragedy of it all. You see, you didn't stop being sensitive. You just got tired of feeling like you had to apologize for it. See, you got tired of monitoring every emotion and double checking every word and engaging every reaction. And you got tired of flinching at your own softness. And you got tired of pretending not to care when all you really wanted to do was just to be understood. This episode is not about turning you into someone that you're not. It's about helping you return to who you've always been before the shame and before the shutdown and before the silence existed. Because your sensitivity isn't a liability. It's it's the very soul of your integrity. It's the birthplace of real intimacy. It's what allows you to notice what others may miss. And it's what allows you to sit with the pain instead of running from it. And to love without conditions and to connect without control. But for years you've been made to believe the opposite. You've been handed a version of masculinity that's really allergic to vulnerability. And when you couldn't fit that mold, well, that's when they said you were weak. But maybe that mold was maybe that mold was a problem and not you. Maybe it's that you weren't too much. Maybe it was that you were too real for a world that really runs on performance. Think about this. When was the first time that you were told to hide your heart, to hide yourself, to hide your heart? Was it when you maybe cried from like in front of your dad when he just looked away? Or maybe you were bullied for caring too much? Was it maybe when a girl told you that she wanted someone who was more confident? Or was it when you were maybe grieving and someone just told you to get over it? You see, these moments, they aren't just memories, these are blueprints. And they taught you that it wasn't safe to be you. And over time, these lessons became your identity. And so you stopped being a boy with a big heart and you started just being a man with a locked vault. And you got good at surviving and you got good at suppressing and you got good at not needing anyone. But no matter how good you got at hiding, the cost always found you. It was in the form of anxiety or rage or depression or addiction or relationships that never seemed to reach the intimacy that you crave. So you think that you've buried your emotions, but they're not buried. They're just waiting for you to stop running, waiting for you to waiting for you to admit that you're tired, waiting for you to tell the truth, not just to others, but to yourself as well. The truth that you feel deeply and that you love hard, that you've been hurt more than you let on, that you want to stop pretending. See, this is the turning point. It's not a breakdown. It's not a weakness. It's not a crisis. It's a return to the part of you that never stopped feeling, to the part of you that refused to die even when you ignored it, to the part of you that still believes that connection is possible, even when everything around you says to numb out instead. Because here's the deeper truth. You're not too sensitive. You're just tired of hiding. And maybe the most radical thing that you can do as a man is to stop hiding. See, the world doesn't make it this easy though, does it? It's one thing to simply say, be more emotionally honest, right? But it's another to actually live it in a world that punishes vulnerability, especially in men. So maybe you've tried, maybe you've opened up just a little, right? And it backfired, and they laughed, and they pulled away, and they used it against you. And that pain left a mark. And so you told yourself, never again. And you shut the door on softness, and you locked it tight, and you traded vulnerability for control, and emotion for strategy, and longing for logic. And on the outside, it seemed to work. And you looked fine, and you held it together, and you played the part. But something inside of you never fully came back, because every time that you say, I'm fine, when you're not, every time when you smile when what you really want to do is just scream in pain, every time that you agree to something that hurts just to avoid the discomfort of the truth and sitting in it, every time you do those things, you betray yourself. And slowly that betrayal turns into numbness, and then into resentment, and then into isolation. See, you don't feel safer, you just feel smaller. And you don't feel stronger, you just feel more alone. Because suppression, it doesn't build strength. Suppression just builds walls. And here's what those walls actually block. Those walls block connection, and they block trust and depth and love. See, you can't selectively shut down emotions when you close yourself off to pain, or you close yourself off as well to joy then, or to beauty, and to awe, and to intimacy. See, you become an emotional ghost that starts walking through life, present in body, yes, but absent in soul. And then one day, someone says, I just can't feel you, or you seem distant, or I never really know what you're thinking. And so you panic. Not because they're wrong, but because deep down, you know they're right. You are distant, and you are hard to read. You are hidden. Not because you want to be so, but because the world taught you that this is the only way to survive. But here's the thing. Survival is not the same thing as living. See, you've survived, you've endured, you've done what you had to do. But now you're ready for something far more abundant. You're ready to experience wholeness. And this wholeness is not about being emotionally perfect. It's about being emotionally present. It's about learning to feel without flinching, and learning to speak without shrinking yourself and diminishing yourself, to learning to stay with your truth even when it's messy. And that's where healing begins. Not in some big breakthrough, not in a perfectly scripted therapy session, right? Not in these contexts, but in the small moments when you choose truth over performance. It kind of feels like saying, I don't know, instead of pretending that you actually do know. Or that hurt, and instead of brushing that off, saying, I need a minute, instead of just storming out and shutting down. See, these are tiny moments. These are real moments. These are moments that rebuild connection between you and your own soul. Because what sensitivity really asks of you is to feel, not to perform feeling, not to analyze feeling, not to even manage it like a problem that needs to be solved, but just to feel it, to let it rise, to let it speak, to let it be part of the conversation again. And no, not everyone will understand. You see, some people will still mock you and misread you and dismiss you, but they're not your people. Your people, your people are the ones who meet your vulnerability with presence. Your people are the ones who say, me too, not man up. Or these are the ones who feel safer to be around because you're safe with yourself in the first place. But you can't find those people until you become one who comes out of hiding. This is what I mean by emotional integrity. It's not about being emotional all the time, okay? It's not about crying in public or sharing every feeling with everyone. No, it's not none of those. It's about alignment. Alignment, feeling what you feel and letting that be okay. And not managing it, not manipulating it, not masking it, but meeting it with honesty. That's what makes you real. That's what makes you trustworthy. That's what makes you free. So let's talk about what happens when you stop hiding. Okay, it doesn't mean that you walk around raw and exposed, breaking open to anyone who would listen to you. And it doesn't mean that you turn every conversation into a therapy session. But it does mean that you begin to honor your truth, the truth of your experience, without shame. When someone asks how you're doing, consider pausing and then checking in. And maybe you could say something like, oh, it's been a tough week, or I'm figuring some things out right now. And that moment, that one honest answer, begins to reshape the way that you are relating to the world around you. And so you stop performing and you stop posturing and you stop trying to earn connection by pretending that you don't need it in the first place. And instead you begin to live from the inside out, not from the outside in. But this shift isn't just about what you say though, it's about how you actually treat yourself. Because self-abandonment isn't just what you do around others, it's how you relate to your own emotions, especially when no one's watching. So do you shut them down, or do you mock them internally? Do you try to logic your way out of them perhaps? Or do you listen? Or do you give your feelings the dignity of being felt? See, most of us, we've never learned how to do that, have we? We learned how to categorize emotions, right? For example, good versus bad, or strong versus weak, right? And sensitivity, it always landed on the bad side, didn't it? But let's be clear. Sensitivity is not fragility. Sensitivity it's data. It's your nervous system telling you something that matters. It's your soul that's nudging you to slow down. It's like your body that's registering the depth of your aliveness. So you're not weak because you feel deeply. You're actually awake, and you don't need to shut that down, but you do need to steward it, which means learning to hold your emotions without shame or panic, right? It means noticing your sadness and saying, ooh, yeah, this belongs, this fits. It means recognizing your anger and asking, I wonder what boundary got crossed here. It means welcoming your joy without waiting for it to be taken away. See, this is what emotional maturity looks like. It's not stuffing your feelings and not dumping them either, right? It's just being with your feelings, like you'd be with a close friend. Imagine, imagine what it would be like to stop fighting your feelings, right? To stop running, to stop apologizing, to stop editing your soul, just so that you can make others feel comfortable. Imagine what that possibility could be like if your sensitivity wasn't something that you had to hide, but it was something to lead with. See, here's the paradox. The very trait that you were taught to mute is often your deepest superpower. It's the part of you that cries at the movies, or notices the small details, or remembers birthdays, or pains when others hurt. It's that part of you that people trust. That part that builds connection. That part of your future partner or or the one that you're going to be drawn to at some point. That part that your kids will remember. The part of you that makes love sustainable. Because love without emotional presence, that's just management, right? It's just performance. It's hollow. But love that's rooted in honesty, in feeling, in tenderness, that's the kind of love that doesn't wear out. And yes, it requires a mask. It requires the mask to be dropped. It requires that you risk showing up. It requires you meeting the, the possibility that you might be misunderstood. But the cost of hiding is far greater than the cost of being seen and having all those things happen. See, when you hide your sensitivity, you're not protecting yourself. You're actually cutting yourself off. You're cutting yourself off from the joy, from connection, from the kind of relationship where you actually can breathe and feel seen. And here's the thing. You deserve that kind of connection. You were never meant to carry your tenderness, your vulnerability, like a shameful secret. You were meant to offer it like a gift. See, you were never the problem. It's not your depth that's broken, but it's a culture that taught you to fear this, to bury it, to disguise it as stoicism, to trade it in for strength. But what if we were to flip that script? What if this, like your sensitivity or your emotional honesty or your pain to or desire to be real, what if these were actually your strengths? What if not weakness is what makes you tired, but pretending that you don't actually feel any of these things? See, the exhaustion doesn't come from being too much. It comes from never being enough for yourself. You keep shaving off pieces of your truth just so you can fit someone else's version of manhood. And you keep quiet when you want to speak up. You nod when you really want to say no, and you tolerate what you wish you could walk away from, just so that you can keep the peace. But here's something that not many will tell you, and that is, you can't make peace outside of you while you're at war within yourself. Real sustainable peace begins when you stop lying to yourself, when you stop shaming the tender and vulnerable parts, when you stop asking your body to silence what it was built to say, and when you stop apologizing for the very things that make you most alive. See, your sensitivity is not a liability. It's a compass, a mirror, a bridge, and it shows you when things are off. It's how you know when something's true versus not. It's how you connect to others, and to yourself as well. But this requires one thing, and that is it requires your permission. See, you have to stop waiting for someone else to give you space to be real. You have to instead decide here and now, like in this moment, who you are, and, and give yourself permission to feel deeply and to be grounded and to cry and to lead and to tremble and be trustworthy. Because emotional honesty in its expression is not about staying in your feelings. It's actually about walking through them with intentionality and being awake and fully human in the process. And that's the version of you that this world needs. Not this perfectly curated one, but and not the one that's armored and vulnerable, but the one that is whole and complete. The one who shows up, the one who doesn't flinch, the one who feels and keeps going. So let me end this here with a question that only you can answer. What would it take for you to stop hiding? Not just from others, but from yourself. Well, what would it take to sit with your sensitivity and say, you're welcome here. You've always been welcome here. And then to proceed from there and start building your life and your relationships and your boundaries and your dreams and all these beautiful things from that place. Not from fear, not from performance, but from the truth of your own heart. Because that's what I believe she's been waiting for. That's what your body has been waiting for. That's what your future is actually depending on. Not your armor and not your indifference, not your emotional detachment, but it's been waiting for your willingness to actually feel again, to sit with your feelings and to be fully present and to stay in the midst of all that discomfort. You see, when you do, you won't just reclaim your sensitivity, you'll actually reclaim your life. And that is so worthwhile. Thanks for listening to this episode with me and wrestling. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Would you share them? I'd appreciate that.